My wife and I love to hike. We love it so much we've traveled across the US to hike some of America's most famous trails. We always come prepared, bringing a backpack full of water, food, first aid kit, rope, fire starter, even a portable gas stove and a can of propane. With over 100 different trails under our belts, you'd think we'd never run into major problems. We'd made sure to be ready for our last hike, just like we always had. But something happened that we simply just overlooked, and before we knew it, what was supposed to be another beautiful hike turned into something so sinister and terrifying, I hope to never experience it again, yet alone go back to that place. We hit the trail 1:45 p.m. We'd gotten a bit of ways into it, taking our time and enjoying the sights and each other's company, cracking jokes and all. We stopped at a creek and made some late lunch, some toasted turkey sandwiches with a bottle of vitamin water, then made our way through more of the twisting pines. We checked the map on GPS, and I guess to our worst judgment, found that we'd gone far enough to spend a solid hour or two on our way back in the dark. Not having brought any camping gear for a night's stay, we promptly made our way back. Sooner rather than later, we were in the dark. With a flashlight in each of our hands, we could still see the trail. Cell service was dead, but it was no problem. We'd done this before, and so long as we had GPS to count on, we were golden. That was until we checked back on the map to see how much further we had and saw that we'd somehow gone off trail quite substantially. Not only that, it looked like we'd been walking aimlessly through the woods. We both scratched our heads at this, incredulous to the idea that we could have mistaken anything other than a trail for a trail, if that makes any sense. We started walking back to the closest section of the trail the GPS was showing us. After a good hour and a half in the dark, which meant we'd already be back at the van by now, still off trail, my wife started to panic. I told her to sit on the ground for a moment and catch her breath, since she was hyperventilating. While she did that, I walked through the woods a little bit to see if I could get a look at the North Star. If I could just see that, I could figure out what direction would get us closer to our car, knowing that the trail went straight west. That would mean to head back to where we parked, the North Star would have to be to our left. I searched and searched until I could see it through the trees, so I immediately knew which direction we needed to follow. That's when I heard a scream come from behind me, and I realized I shouldn't have ever left her alone. I got back to where I could have sworn I'd left her, but she was gone. I kept hearing that awful scream. I'd never heard something like that come out of her mouth. I couldn't believe she could make such a wretched sound. I kept following the screams, but every time I heard it, it got further and further away. I went to check GPS to see where I might be, but forgot that I left it with her. I decided to make my way back to the car to get help. There was no point wandering in circles, and time was of the essence. I had to have ran at least 30 minutes straight, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I made it to a road that I remember turning off of to park in the trailhead's parking lot. I was lighter on my feet than ever, knowing that I could easily grab the car and take it to the trail center for help. Then, I saw her. She was sitting in the car, calm and unharmed. I couldn't believe it. I could sit in front of a judge and jury and swear on the Bible that she was not okay, that something happened to her out there. But to my eyes, she was totally fine. When she saw me, she hopped out of the car and threw her arms around me, almost in tears. "I thought I lost you," she said. I told her I thought I lost her too, that I heard her screaming in the dark like her life depended on it. She looked at me in confusion. "Honey, I never once screamed. What are you talking about?" Remember when we were kids? We went through that phase of scaring each other into believing in those cryptic tales like Bloody Mary or the Candyman? Maybe you don't, but I do. I remember standing in the bathroom with the lights off, shivering in fear while staring at the mirror, saying Bloody Mary 3 times, expecting the worst any child's imagination can come up with, only to learn that none of it was real, and feeling like an idiot afterwards, but laughing it off anyways. We all grow out of it eventually, or some don't. But there's this one time I got locked in the basement that still gives me goosebumps. I'm the youngest of 3, sibling to older twin brothers, 3 years my senior. Just like we go through phases of believing in fairy tales, my older siblings went through a phase of psychologically torturing me for the fun of it. Talk about literal evil twins. They'd drop fake spiders in my bed, shake me awake screaming, "There's spiders all over you!" or throw worms down my pants whenever we'd get to the lake on our family reunions. I'd had enough of it over the years, but nothing compared to that basement stunt they pulled. They started by telling me they thought they heard something down there. I was convinced they'd go down there at night and bang on the walls. Eventually, they started telling me that Mom and Dad told them about what was down there, that some monster lived in that basement, and that if I asked Mom or Dad about it, they'd just lie to me. They said Mom and Dad didn't tell me because I'm too little. I'd get too frightened. Truthfully, I kind of believed them. We'd been having breakfast one morning before school, when I could already tell they were up to something. At the kitchen table, they just kept giving me that look, the look that said, "He has no idea what we're up to." I didn't ask, but I was curious. We hugged Mom and Dad goodbye as they went off to work. Us boys rode the same bus, and the twins were old enough now to walk to the bus stop alone, my parents having the bright idea of letting me tag along with them. If that meant they didn't have to drop me off at school anymore, then that's how it was going to go. I never did get on that bus that morning. It didn't take all but 5 minutes after both of our parents pulled out of the driveway for one of them to grab me by the arms and drag me to the basement door, the other laughing hysterically. "It's gonna get ya, just you see," one of them said. They opened the basement door and I could see the staircase that descended, disappearing into pitch black. "Should we leave the light on for him?" Evil twin number 2 said. "Surely he can find it himself," evil twin number 1 said. I was shoved down the stairs, the door slamming shut behind me. A few scrapes and what I'm sure was a sprained ankle, I crawled back up to the top of the staircase to get as far away from the darkness as I could. They'd locked the door, so I banged and screamed until my throat was burning. Nobody answered. I couldn't take my eyes off that blackness at the bottom of the staircase, waiting for that monster to grab me by the ankle and drag me down. There was a twinkle that caught the corner of my vision. I looked carefully in that direction. Whatever it was, we were looking at each other. Its eyes were suspended in the air. I saw nothing else of it. My heart rate jumped along with the rest of my body. I got up and rammed the door until I bent the hinges and broke the bolt lock on the door, immediately looking for the telephone in the kitchen to call Mom, screaming and hyperventilating in panic, with her on the other end of the line, while I couldn't take my eye off the basement entryway. We all had a sit-down later that evening. Dad was pissed to high heaven. The twins admitted to everything and apologized, but our father had them do yard work for a week to pay off the damages to the door. I walked away without punishment, and why not? My older brothers pulled me aside after the big sit-down. "Did you really see something down there? I mean, we were just screwing with you." We avoided that basement until our mom got a new job up district and moved. They didn't mess with me again. You could try to explain it all away as an 8-year-old's runaway imagination. Maybe it was, but maybe it wasn't. I went spelunking with some friends down in South America as a part of my buddy Alex's bachelor party. Aside from all the booze and window shopping, we'd found a web of caves known as Trono del Diablo, translated in English as Throne of the Devil, or Devil's Throne for short. We'd read online that a lot of the cave system had already been explored, and we'd made sure to print off some of the complimentary maps. We were more so interested in the unexplored portions. It was down in Chile, about 100 miles away from where we were staying, so we took a cab down the west coast. When we'd gotten off the cab, we suited up in all the necessary gear and started our way down the chasms to some of the unmarked zones of the cave. According to the map, we'd already gone almost 100 yards deep and 30 yards down into the cave. You'd think it would get cold down there, but actually it's the opposite. The temperature hovers around the surface temp, but the deeper you go, the warmer it gets. It being the middle of the summer and the middle of the day, it was about 85 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 30 degrees Celsius for my South American listeners, with the forecast saying it would get up to a little over 90 degrees Fahrenheit by 4 p.m. We'd gotten to some of the unmarked parts of the system when the worst-case scenario happened. Flashlights went dead. I cannot explain to you how something like that happens. Maybe humidity? All the moisture in the air somehow seeping into the battery? Or, more embarrassing, we all didn't check our flashlights or change them out. Either way, we were sitting ducks in a tunnel with nothing but the echo of our voices to bring us company. Without being able to see the map, finding our way back is dangerous. One wrong turn, and we could descend further into the unknown until there was truly no way of getting out. We all decided to sit on it and keep trying our flashlights for a while. Maybe dig in our packs and find replacement batteries by chance. A few hours in, one of the guys started to scream in a panic. We shut him up real quick before he got everyone else freaking out. One of the other guys was starting to get impatient, deciding it was best if he just took a shot at making it back out so he could bring back some flashlights for us. We sat for another 3 hours, thinking he'd possibly gotten lost and that we might be more screwed than we thought, until we saw a light that illuminated the cave walls. He'd made it out and brought fresh mags for all of us. The rest of it was a success. We did everything we set out to do in that cave, but the part where we nearly got stuck was the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced.